Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the 5 affordable condos being made available at Liberty Woods in Hanson. So the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the condos. I'll also cover the application, eligibility, and lottery processes and what to expect after the lottery itself. If you have any questions during this session, you're encouraged to either type them into the chat function in your Zoom screen here, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So this meeting is being recorded so that it can be posted to our YouTube channel for anyone who wasn't able to make it tonight, who wants to have a look at it. So just a heads up on that. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable homes, conduct this information session, collect and review lottery applications to determine an applicant's eligibility for the affordable housing program, and then also to eventually run the lottery. So we're not the sales team, we're not part of the owners, but we also haven't seen the homes in person or the site, but we will be your main point of contact rather than the developer during this lottery process or during the marketing process. But then further along, you'll have direct contact, of course, with the sales team if you're invited to move forward to purchase one of the homes. So there's kind of 2 general steps in the process, and I'll be covering both of those during the session. So the first is to apply for the affordable housing program. That's when you'll be in touch with SEB Housing. We can answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program or on your application. We'll do a preliminary review of your application, and you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the waiting list if you're found eligible for the lottery. So the second step in the process really involves all the processes of reserving and buying and actually purchasing one of the homes. So your opportunity to do that will depend on your placement on the waiting list following the lottery drawing. So if you haven't done so yet, you're encouraged to go to our website, so sebhousing.com, and if you go to our affordable housing opportunities page and select I want to buy, you're going to see a page specific to Liberty Woods, and it has a downloadable version of the application, a sample deed rider, and an information packet. The information packet is going to contain most of the information that I am going to be covering during this session, but we recommend that you review it even if you attended this session. So since I'm not able to cover absolutely everything in there, and there's a lot of useful information. If you choose to apply to purchase one of the affordable condos at Liberty Woods, you're going to need to complete that lottery application and attach a mortgage pre-approval. So those are the only 2 items that are needed to apply for this lottery. You don't need to submit your pay stubs or any verifying income information just yet. You're just self-reporting your household details on the application. So you can send the information to us in one of a few ways. The first is emailing or scanning it to us and sending it to info@sebhousing.com. You can fax it to us. The fax number is listed on the first page of the application. You can send it by regular mail, or if you happen to be in the Needham area, we do have an office at 257 Hillside Ave, and we have a secure drop box located at the building there. So whichever one of those options works best for you, that's how you would apply for this lottery. We do encourage you to get your application in soon. If you know that you're interested, it is fairly brief. Again, there isn't any income information that you need to supply at this time, just your mortgage pre-approval and that lottery application. So applications are due by March 31st, so a little bit over a month from now. That's when the application period will close, and the mortgage pre-approvals and applications need to be delivered or postmarked by March 31st to be considered for the lottery. So the homes themselves, so there's 5 condos, and these are the first affordable homes being made available at Liberty Woods. There's going to be additional lotteries for another 9 condos at a later date. And these condos are going to be sold at an affordable price to households who qualify meaning that they qualify for the affordable housing program and that they have incomes that are at or below 80% of the area median income. And I'll talk about those income amounts in just a few minutes. So this is Liberty Woods is going to be a 56-unit residential development in Hanson, and there needs to be at least one household member who is age 55 or older, because this is an age-restricted community. And the affordable units are going to be, interspersed throughout the development. They're not going to be all clustered in one area or anything like that. And each of the homes has a 2-car garage plus a driveway. There's central heat and air conditioning. Pets are welcome at the property. There are some restrictions that you'd be talking with if you do have a pet. And the units are about 2,200 square feet, a little bit more. And the sales price for each of the condos is $185,400. There is a monthly HOA fee of $350 per month. And so these sales prices are considered affordable. They're significantly lower than the prices for the market rate homes within the community. From what I could see, the market rate homes at the property are selling for about $600,000. And that monthly condo fee that I mentioned, that $350 a month, is going to cover costs such as snow plowing, landscaping, maintenance, and the community clubhouse utilities. So there's going to be a full list of what your condo fees cover further along in the process, if you're curious about that. And so since these homes are only going to be made available to households that qualify for the affordable housing program, that's why they're being sold at affordable prices. So one of the stipulations of being eligible for this lottery is that the incomes of the households needs to be below 80% of the area median income. That's referred to as AMI. So AMIs are amounts that the Department of Housing and Urban Development, so HUD, the federal HUD department, releases each spring. So Hanson falls within the Brockton, Massachusetts AMI area, and I'll go through the amounts here that are on your screen in just a few minutes. So since these are affordable homes, they're going to have what's called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of the purchase. So that deed rider ensures that the home remains affordable even in the future if the first homeowner eventually chooses to sell it. So just a quick overview of what that means. The deed rider, in part, limits the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. So this opportunity might not be for you if you're looking to buy, flip, or resell a home within a year or two. It doesn't mean you won't be able to sell the condo for more than what you paid for it, but it just needs to be resold to another affordable buyer. So there may be some return on investment, but you shouldn't expect to see the same appreciation that you might see when selling a market rate home. There is a formula for resale price of these affordable properties, and there's an example of that listed on the last page of the information packet. That formula is based on the AMI. Another stipulation in the deed rider is that this condo would need to be your primary residence, so it generally can't be rented out as a investment property like an Airbnb or Vrbo. And then finally, just the third item here that I wanted to mention on the deed rider: if you wanted to refinance or make capital improvements, such as a new roof to the condo in the future, Mass Housing, which is the entity that oversees this affordable housing program for this property, Mass Housing would need to approve of that improvement. Again, these are going to be brand new homes, so those types of improvements probably wouldn't be applicable for many years, but just want to give you a heads up of kind of the three main areas that the deed rider covers. So as I mentioned, a mortgage pre-approval is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. So if you haven't already obtained a mortgage pre-approval from a bank, we suggest that after you review the information packet, you either copy or just rip out page 8 that lists the required mortgage pre-approval standards for this affordable housing opportunity, and just bring that page with you to the mortgage lender or the bank to show it to them. The reason we suggest that applicants do that is because you want to make sure that your mortgage product, the mortgage product that's being offered to you by the bank, is going to meet the necessary standards. So also you can bring the deed rider. Again, our website listing has the deed rider as a PDF. along with the application. So you can take that deed rider as well, because sometimes some of the stipulations in the deed rider could be problematic for some lenders. There are certain loans that won't accept all terms of the deed rider. For example, the loan has to have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. The mortgage also cannot be an FHA or a VA loan, since those types of loans don't accept the deed restrictions for this affordable housing program. So, of course, you don't want to be in a situation where the lender grants your pre-approval because they weren't aware of any of these restrictions at the time that you got your pre-approval, because then they would need to back out of the sale at the time that you were trying to get your mortgage commitment. So we always just recommend that applicants seek out a lender that is experienced in affordable housing, and a link is listed in the information packet that would take you to Mass Housing Partnership's website. They're a nonprofit that they have a great resource online in which you can find a lot of lenders that are familiar with affordable housing. And so the mortgage pre-approval itself, so it states that you need to provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price, half of which, so 1.5% of the purchase price, needs to come from your own funds. So your loan, your mortgage, could be up to 97% of the purchase price. Let me know if you have any questions now on the general application process or the deed rider. And if not, I'm going to move on to the eligibility requirements for the program, which is what's on your screen. So there's 4 eligibility requirements, actually 5 eligibility requirements for this opportunity, since this is an age-restricted community. So there's the eligibility requirements are listed on page 4 of the information packet. The first is that every household needs to be considered a first-time home buyer. So there's some exceptions to that first-time home buyer rule, which I'll discuss in a couple minutes. But generally, households can't own a home at the time of application. Even if you qualify for an exception, you would need to sell your home prior to closing on an affordable condo at Liberty Woods. And I'll talk about those exceptions in just a minute. And then I've already touched on this, but the household income and assets must be below the maximum allowable income and asset limits that are on your screen there. And I'll talk a lot more about those in just a minute as well. Households must be pre-approved for a mortgage. So again, that mortgage pre-approval needs to come in with the application. Households can't have financial interest in the development or be what's considered a related party. So the developer that is offering these condos can't be an immediate relative of yours, can't work for them in any capacity, because you won't be eligible for this lottery if that's true for you. And then finally, since this is an age-restricted lottery, there must be at least one household member that's over the age of 55 to qualify. So just to circle back to the first eligibility criteria to explain more. So every household member being a first-time home buyer. All households are considered first-time home buyers if they haven't, within the last 3 years, owned a home. So that includes through joint ownership. So if a household member was on the deed to a home along with another person or a partner, that person was still considered to be an owner of the home because their name was on the deed. There are 5 exceptions to the first-time homebuyer rule, and these are all listed in the information packet. The 3 exceptions that come up most often, I just want to touch on. So the first is if you have someone in your household that is considered a displaced homemaker, that's someone that the program defines as someone who hasn't worked outside of the home for years, but worked at home to care for the home and family. They used to own a home within the last 3 years with their partner or spouse, but they no longer own that home due to a recent divorce or legal separation. So they're no longer on the home's deed. So if that household owned a home within the last 3 years, they might still be eligible for this lottery because they qualify for that first-time home buyer exception as a displaced homemaker. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, or someone who's pregnant and is now being displaced due to that family breakup and they're looking for a new home. And then again, the third exception that I wanted to touch on is an age-qualified household. So if you have a household member who's 55 years or older and that person is selling a home or has recently sold a home to purchase an affordable property, they might be eligible for this lottery. And if you qualify for any of those exceptions, you do still need to sell the home before buying a condo at Liberty Woods. So you can apply if you qualify for one of those exceptions, but it would need to be sold. So that might mean that a divorce might need to be finalized or some other action might need to be taken so that your home is no longer on the deed. So the affordable income limits that are on your screen right now, so like I mentioned, since these are affordable condos, they're only going to be made available to households who qualify under these income parameters that are listed here. So 80% of AMI for a one-person household, two-person household, three-person household, these numbers are listed here for the Brockton area, which is where Hanson falls. So the maximum income limits, as you can see, are set by household size. So you want to look here and see, if you're a two-person household, your household can't have a total household income of over $78,250 per year to qualify. And so although you do not need to submit verification of your income at this time, still do want to give you a kind of overview of how we calculate your income when we're looking at your application. So income for this program, this affordable housing program, is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So this includes, if you're working, bonuses and overtime. The only exceptions are minors. So anyone under the age of 18 in your household who's earning a wage, we wouldn't count their wage income for towards your total household income. And then if you have a full-time student who's maybe over the age of 18 and is still dependent, living in your household, a college student, for example, if they're working, we're only going to count up to $480 of their total wages. And we do have to count gross income. So not net income, but the amount you make before taxes, although, most of us aren't taking home your full amount on your pay stub, for example, because you're paying health insurance and Social Security and that sort of thing. How we calculate income isn't one size fits all for the program because everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some applicants are going to have that weekly salary that's consistent throughout the year, but some people are self-employed or they work seasonally. In those circumstances, we might need to look further back into the past to be able to anticipate what your income might be for the next 12 months. And then specifically for households who are self-employed, you would need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation of your business expenses for us to be able to calculate your income. But for everyone in general, any income that you have been making, we're going to need to assume that you're going to continue to make it going forward unless we have definitive documentation that you're no longer earning the income source. So maybe you switch jobs and your taxes are showing us that you had 2 jobs last year, you only have 1 job now. We might need something from your former employer to confirm that for us. So when you're filling out your application, just make sure you're listing all income coming into your household. So that could be wages, it could be Social Security payments, SSDI payments, pensions, anything like that. There's no minimum household income requirement for homeownership lotteries, but in order to qualify for a mortgage, you're going to need to meet the bank or the lender's requirements in order to get that mortgage pre-approval. So just keep that in mind. And as you can see on your screen here, that the household asset limit for this lottery is $275,000 at the time of your application. So that includes any funds that you were planning to use as a future down payment. So same thing with, if a family member was going to gift you part of your down payment, that is considered an asset. So you need to disclose that on your application and all of that. So when we're talking about assets, we're thinking, it's really all assets, not just checking and savings accounts, but the net value of any stocks, retirement accounts like a 401k, bonds, even the money that you have in Venmo or PayPal accounts. So we get this question a lot. You might think it's strange that we have to count funds that you have tied up in a retirement account because you might not be planning to use that money for some time, but that's why it's the net cash value of the amount. So If you have a 401k, for example, it might be that we need a letter from the financial institution that you have the 401k listing the post-penalty amount. So if you were to withdraw those assets right now, how much would you be able to obtain? We don't need documentation for personal assets like jewelry or cars or anything like that. So again, if you have any questions on, the eligibility criteria I just went through, please let me know. I'll switch over to a couple other slides now. All right. So like I mentioned, if you're interested in this opportunity, we encourage you to get your lottery application in as soon as possible, along with that mortgage pre-approval. And SEB Housing will review your application and contact you if any information seems to be missing or incorrect. So we'll give you a chance to resubmit as necessary. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number. So it's going to be in the form of a series of numbers. So if you were the first person to be found eligible for the Liberty Woods lottery, you're going to have the lottery application number A.001. That's just meant to be an anonymous identifier at this point. It's not an indication of your rank on the waiting list or anything like that, because we don't want to be calling out names during the lottery. We're going to be calling out your lottery application number. The email that you receive with your lottery application number is also going to confirm whether or not your household qualifies for local preference. So if you live or work full-time in Hanson, you may have listed that on your application and identified yourself as a household that has local preference. So you don't need to supply verification of local preference or anything like that until after the lottery, but if you do qualify for it, you want to indicate that. Like I said, the lottery application deadline is March 31st. The lottery itself is going to be held on April 14th, and it's going to be held virtually, similar to the format that we're doing this session right now. So it's going to be via Zoom. I'll screen share the results. You'll see what we have. And the waiting list will be created shortly after the lottery. So the top households will be invited forward by SEB Housing to move on in this process and reserve the unit, get the mortgage, purchase the property after reserving one of the condos. So during the lottery, every lottery number is going to be drawn. So sometimes when you think of lotteries, you're gonna think, okay, there's only 5 condos, so we're going to draw 5 numbers, but that's not the case here, because the lottery in this case is held for us to establish the order of the waiting list for these condos. So they create an order of priority for the next steps in the process. So when you're watching during the night of the lottery, you might not know your placement at the time of the lottery, but you will after the waiting list is established. And what I mean by that is when we're pulling the lottery application numbers, we don't know who qualifies for local preference, who doesn't, who is a type 1 household or a type 2 household. So all of that sorting will be done after the lottery itself, and you'll get that email from us that same evening with the next steps. So when you're reviewing that email that comes in after the lottery, you're going to see that the waiting lists are attached. You're going to find your lottery application number, and you're going to have a better idea as to whether or not you'll be asked to move forward in this process if you're one of those top households on the waiting list. So if you are one of those top households, SEB Housing will send you an invitation to move forward in the process, and that's the point where you'll be asked to submit your income, asset, and tax documentation to confirm the income and the other information that you had listed and self-reported on your lottery application. Hopefully by that point, you've been able to gather some of the information that you need, and you'll have about a week to get all of that requested documentation into SEB Housing. It's a lot of information, so a lot of times not everything is submitted to us right away, which is fine. We'll work with you to make sure you get your completed application in. So you'll be given, an incomplete notice, for example, if something is missing, and you'll be given additional time to get that into us. So ultimately, if you are found to be eligible by SEB Housing, our next step will be to send your file to the monitoring agent that has been assigned by Mass Housing. That monitoring agent in this case is Metro West Collaborative Development. So that's an agency that Mass Housing has chosen to be the monitoring agent and to review the applications on their behalf. And Metro West will give us a green light if you're eligible to move forward in the process. And so once that monitoring agent has approved your application, the process becomes more similar to what it would be if you were purchasing a market rate home. So at that point, that's kind of the point in the process where we like to mention that if you decide to hire an attorney to assist you in navigating through the home buying process, we encourage you to do that. Perfectly acceptable. It's a huge decision, so you might want to wait to do that until you know that you are going to be one of the top households on the waiting list and your application has been approved by the monitoring agent. So like I said, once the monitoring agent has approved your application and all of your income information is in, they'll put you in touch, or will put you in touch with the owner or the developer, I should say, in this case, the sales team, to schedule a time to tour the condo and complete their reservation agreement. And in order to reserve the home, at that point, you'll need to put down a $500 deposit. After you reserve the home, you'll have about 10 business days to sign that purchase and sale agreement, which is one of the last steps in the home buying process. And at the time that you're signing the purchase and sale agreement, you'll have to put down 1.5% of the sales price minus that $500 that you already paid to reserve the unit. Your purchase and sale agreement is going to include certain agreed upon contingencies, a closing date, and at that point, like I said, the finish line is near in the process. Once that P&S is signed, you're going to need to go back to the lender who issued your mortgage pre-approval and obtain a mortgage commitment. So the process at the lender varies a little bit depending on what they normally look for, but usually when they're about to, when they're reviewing your application for the mortgage commitment, they're going to review all of the documentations that you have up until this point. So purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider, et cetera, and they'll do an appraisal of the condo. Now, households need to remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until closing. So about 3 to 4 weeks prior to your closing date, we're going to conduct a final review. That might entail getting updated pay stubs from you, bank statements, the mortgage commitment letter, and SEB Housing will forward that final package to the monitoring agent for their final review. And so if both SEB Housing and the monitoring agent agree that your eligibility has been maintained and you're still eligible for the affordable housing program, you're going to move towards closing. Once you have closed on the home, you own it, you can move in. There's not going to be any future income or asset eligibility reviews at that point. So we get this question a lot. If you buy the home, you move in on May 1st, for example, and then you get a raise or a second job or someone else moves in the summer or later on down the line, are you going to somehow not be eligible for this home anymore? And no, that's not true at all. So just know that, again, there's no future income or asset eligibility reviews after you purchase the home. It's just that later on, if you choose to sell the home, you have that deed restriction that has some stipulations on selling the property. Another question we sometimes get is what the annual taxes are on the property. So the Hanson tax rate right now is $13.38 per thousand, and since this, after I do the math, the condo taxes for this condo annually should be about $2,500. That's an estimate right now. That's based off of the affordable sales price, not the potential market rate sales price of this home. That pretty much covers everything I wanted to get through from the information packet. Again, you can find that lottery application for the affordable homes for Liberty Woods on our website. So if you go to sebhousing.com and you go to affordable housing opportunities and I want to buy, that's where you're going to see the information packet, sample deed rider, the application. And just again, this is our email address here with any questions that you think of after tonight, or if you're watching this after the fact. and then our website is here. So if you have any questions, let me know.
I have a
And if you think of
question.
anything after tonight, we will obviously be around.
I have a question.
Sure.
My name's Deneen, by the way. Not, that's my son's name. I don't know how that happened. I've already submitted my application, and if I am not one of the top five and there are units that will be coming up available later, do you have to do another application or does it just move down the wait list?
So it will be a separate waiting list for those additional units in another lottery. But let me check with my colleagues about whether or not you would definitely need to reapply just because I don't know when the second lottery will be. It will likely be at least 9 months from now, I'm thinking. But I, I do not think you have any sort of priority if you were in a previous lottery, just because, like I said, it will be new waiting list. I'm going to check
Okay.
on that, and since we do already have your contact information, I'll email you if I'm incorrect about that.
Yeah, I already have all my information and I'm
Sure.
Deneen Chabot,
Great.
CHABOT.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean,
And
what happens too is, and I should have mentioned this earlier, if you're not one of the top households on the waiting list, but a lot of times people ahead of you on the waiting list could drop off. They might not be eligible anymore. They might have had a change of heart, whatever it is. We do move down the line in that case. Um,
okay.
so if you're not one of the top five, for example, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have any chance at moving forward in the process. Usually it's not the top five people on the waiting list that would purchase the first five homes. It usually is a matter of needing to go down the waiting list a little bit to secure all the homes.
Okay. And do you have any idea, you probably don't, the amount of people that would be applying for this at this point? It's
So there's
still
only
early
a
in the
few
phase.
right now. I checked earlier. I think there was four that are currently approved for the lottery,
Okay.
based off of what they self-reported, and they have their income information in and all of that. But
Mhm.
it's not a because it is not right immediately near Boston. It's not going to be as popular as some of our other lotteries, even for home ownership. And of course, with the age restricted added kind of restriction there, I'm not expecting dozens and dozens of applications for this one.
Okay. And so then if you, what you're saying, if you're a Hanson resident or you work in Hanson, then you have priority, correct?
You have priority, but not for, bring this up real quick.
I'm not in Hanson and I don't work in Hanson, so.
Yep, so it's not for all of them. So I just pulled up the information packet here on the screen. So for three of the two-bedroom homes, there's local preference. For two of them, there is no preference for local households. So everyone would have the same priority for two of the condos. And
Okay.
yeah, we never know how many people are going to actually be in town that are applying, but yeah.
Right. Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you. This was really informative and I look forward to being one of the top five.
Great. Yeah, I hope so. Thank you for your interest, and we'll definitely be in touch immediately following the lottery and all of that. If you have any questions in the meantime, let us know. And then, like I said, I'll check with my colleagues now and get back to you about just what might happen if you apply and are not one of the top households now. Does that mean anything at all for you for the second lottery?
Okay.
All right,
And what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Catherine. Yep,
Catherine. Okay.
Catherine with SCB
Thank,
Housing. Yeah. Yeah, of
okay.
course.
Thank,
Again,
thank you, Catherine. Have a nice night.
yes, you too. Thanks again for your participation, and we'll be in touch. And we look forward to getting anyone else's application. Have a good night.
Okay. Good night.